Right? Let's say you are on products. If you click on app firewall, the last word on the URL is the current page that you are generally on, right, in any website. So if you click on unified gateway, the last word is the page that you are on, and you would see content specific to this particular page. Okay, and in specific, you see that there is a title component. This should be shown on every page. For example, all these are AEM sites that I'm showing you. And if I go, let's say, the last word here is the page you are on, and you need to have some kind of a title component on every page where you dynamically show this content based on the page that you are on, and the page that you are on is the last word in the URL. Okay, so scenario here is display the title of the page based on the last word based on the URL. The last word in the URL is the current page. Now, how do I work? So, whenever you want to work with dynamic data and displaying dynamic data, right, there are a few things that you need to remember. In JSP, let's say you want to get hold of a session. How do you get hold of a session in a JSP? Anybody remembers? Or let's say you want to get hold of a page context, so that you want to set some attributes and fetch those attributes later on. How do you fetch a page context object?
Get page context. I don't remember exactly. Yeah.
Correct. Or let's say you want to get hold of the request in a JSP. How do you get hold of a request?
We saw that, right? The get
request. I think these are all available in the scope.
get
I think
request dot get
scope.
parameter. No. Oh, okay.
Correct. Request.get parameter. Who is giving me that request? Who is creating that object?
I think the container, the servlet container.
Exactly, right? That is where I'm heading towards. So so those are all called as implicit objects, right? The entire life cycle of that object is maintained by the content. The moment you start the server, any web server, those are made available, right? Even in AEM, you have something called implicit objects, right? When you start the AEM server, you have these implicit objects. Now, where are all the implicit objects stored, right? These are all available in a file called as libs foundation global.jsp. Okay. Now, this libs foundation global.jsp has the definition, right? Has all the implicit objects there. Okay. And also all the tag library definitions that AEM uses. How do you create a custom tag library in JSP? Anybody remembers?
You have a TLD file that have.
Correct. Have a TLD file, and basically the TLD file will have the tag to the class name mapping. And you could also give the URL if you're like, if you want to use, let's say, a JSTL, you will just have to use the URI of that JSTL and have a prefix for that, right? Basically, you're going to give the URI of the TLD here. So let's see. Now I'll go to my libs foundation global.jsp. All the built-in components, your slash libs in AEM, right, is a important location because all the built-in components, dialogues, JavaScript libraries, the configurations are available in libs. Okay, so that's the reason you must never modify the libs, right? Because the entire product source code is in libs. And also, like let's say you are on 6.3, tomorrow when if you in case you modify and you want to upgrade, right? So your changes or whatever, usually any new version of AEM, only libs is what gets modified generally, right? Which means if you modify libs, your upgrade will actually have a newer version of libs and your changes will be gone, right? That's the reason you must never modify libs. If you want to modify a feature in libs, you just need to copy that entire structure. We call that as overlaying, which we'll see in future, and then modify it. Let's say I go to CRXDE. So the scenario here is on my site admin, or let's say on my projects.html. Here, let's create a hierarchy. Now, if I'm on focus, okay, if I'm on the page focus here, this wouldn't work on touch UI as of now because there's something that we still need to do. Okay, if it is focus, I want this here to display as focus, right? So go to components. Let's open up the script, and here we'll say let's just call this as. So there must be some implicit object that I could use to get hold of the page that I'm on right now. Currently I'm on, right? So all the implicit object definitions would be in libs foundation global.jsp. Okay. So all the implicit objects available in AEM are here, right? These are the 20 objects that you see here. Request, response, right? All these objects. All the tag libraries, so these are all these objects. So to look through the API doc, you just need to copy this path and look through the API doc. All these have Java docs already available for you. Okay. And these are all the tag libraries, right? This uses JSTL. There are also other tag libraries like Sling, CQ, FMT, and FN. Okay, so it uses 5 tag libraries. And the first tag, right here, there is a prefix. So how do you use JSTL like ccore or cwen, cchoose, right? Similarly, CQ define objects is a tag which is available in this tag lib CQ 1.0, right? This is the URI where it's available. The CQ define objects, this line that you see here, makes the implicit objects with @param available to the rest of the applications. Okay, available to the rest of means to other areas in the application. Okay, now whatever you see at the red, this is an object. Any object in Java begins with a small alphabet, right? It begins with a alphabet, right, in small, and this is the class name. That's the reason you see that there's a caps here. Okay, so all these are objects. Okay, you don't need to worry too much. This is a built-in file. Now, as a developer, how do I leverage this, right? The requirement for me is to display the current page, right? Because I want to get the page that I'm on. So is there any object close to that, right? If you see, there is something called current page. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'll go to the current page API. Okay, and you'll be able to see all the available methods. Can log, get deleted, get depth, right? The one that I'm looking at is get name, right? So I'll say current page dot get name or get title, anything. Can you think of what is the difference between get name and get title? Right here, there's a title and there's a name. So whatever you add as title is what gets created here when you see the view, and whatever you add as name will be the backend node name. Okay, so over here,
What if somebody wants to change the title another time because it's kind of tied to all your naming?
after it is created, how do I change? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Oh, you can open up any page and go to page properties, right? The page properties will give you the metadata of that page. This title will be one such metadata.
I see. Okay.
So if you see uh, page information, okay, open properties, all the JCR properties that you see in the backend will be available here for editing, and you can edit it.
Oh, and then it automatically goes and changes all the last
Correct. So
the path and URL and everything. Okay.
yeah, the moment you change, the path and URL is coming because of that node name. You're directly changing that node name itself over here.
Correct. I thought so. Okay.
Mm.
So it has to go in the backend and fix everything in terms of the node. It has to do the rename for the node name and also the title over there.
Correct. So the node name you cannot change actually. You need to go to the backend and change. You can only change the title here.
Oh, got it, got it. So the node name is what tied to the actual node. Okay. Got it.
That is one. Or you could actually right click. They're not. You see, that's the reason they're not given you the node name. It's just the title that you can modify. Right. From here also you can just click on properties and change the name. So
I
see
see.
here, title is English.
Mm-hmm.
So let's call this as
Okay.
but the node name is still END. See that?
Yeah, the title.
Backend, yeah, only title is changed.
That makes sense. Otherwise, there's so much more they have to change. Yeah, got it.
So I'll go ahead and use the method here.
So get name gets the actual node name or the title here.
Yeah. Get title will get the JCR title property. Get name will get the node name.
Node name. Okay.
You know that on a page there is a JCR colon title property, right? Let me show you that one. You can also get hold of a lot of other things here, like the path, depth, right? All these things. So let's say it returns the hierarchical depth of the page. From the root node, it basically counts the number of slashes. You will also read the path. You will see all these being used in the next component that we build, path. So get depth. Similarly, there is also another implicit object called current node here. Where is current node? This one. Right? Now, what does this current node do? What is the difference between current page and current node? We'll see. Okay. On when you go to a page, let's say for demo, what will the depth of this one be? From my current from whichever node I've opened up, how many nodes further do I need to go to reach the root node? Right. So just count the number of slashes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the way. That's the depth of your page. So depth is 5 if I click on JCR content. So if I want to read like any of the properties, right, which template have I used to create this page, or who is the person who has created this page, right? CQ last modified by. JCR title would be there on any page because that's a mandatory field when you create a page over here. Then there is a star. Do you see the star? So you cannot have a page with a blank JCR title here. Okay. Then template is the what template was used to create this page. Who created this page? I have logged in as admin, right? Without establishing a session over here, I cannot create this. So created by all these are. So if I want to read any of these properties over here, there is one implicit object to read the properties on associated to a page, which is that implicit object. If you see here, there should be somewhere there should be a properties. Yes, right. This is the one. So I'll say properties dot get.
want to just close the script.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a directive in JSP, everyone knows, right? Different directives in JSP.
Yeah. Don't you have to close the script like before the H3 tags?
Correct, correct.
So the global.jsp is by default, it is included in all the application.
No, I need to include that. Okay, you can add any property over here. This your current created by. Now, how to include that script here? Percentage and the rate include while equal to, because all the objects are available in Lips Foundation global.jsp. That's it. Now, if I refresh this page, it still doesn't work on touch because you need to include the font page component, foundation page. It's- Looks like there is an error on 18, 19, and 20.
Where do you see that? 18, 19, 20. Oh, okay, okay.
I forgot the equals there.
Can we use some kind of editor, Rajesh?
Yeah,
I
we can use Eclipse also. But to set up Eclipse as a Maven, you need to know OSGI in depth. And I
okay.
haven't touched OSGI.
Okay,
That's
you
why,
still need to correct that line. Okay.
yeah. Then it will become assumption because the way it builds, I need to explain a lot of other things before we reach that point.
You need to still correct. You need to put C.
Okay, just by seeing the output difference, this is current page, this is current node, and this is properties.get. Okay, so you could actually look through the API and use other methods as well. There is definition of every single method. Okay, that is secondary. But just by looking at the output, do you think you'll be able to explain the difference between current page and current node? It's in the path.
I think current page, it's displaying the page properties, what we create. The JC, the content is the subnode under the page in the content.
Hmm.
Yeah, the JCR
What
content.
you're saying is very exactly true. So JC current node is going to go one node below the current
Okay.
page. That's why depth has increased by one here. Do you see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But here it is 4. All of you agree with me? And to read any property on that page, now if I open up any other page, so this is specific to SUV. If I open up focus, this is this data. Depending on whichever page you're on, the data also changes dynamically because of the usage of implicit object. Okay, so we have used 3 implicit objects till now. You can change the methods, just go through the API and use whatever you want to. Okay. Having said this, now instead of having a large script here, it's always a good idea to break this down into multiple scripts so that debugging is easy, and parallelly you could have people working on different scripts, right, without overlapping it. So how do I break this large script into multiple scripts? So all that you need to do, create a file. Can you go on mute? There's an echo. Thank you. So I'll create a script. Let's copy this thing. So this percentage at the rate include, is it a compile time include or is it a runtime include? Types of including script in JSP. Anybody remember? Do you know what a compile time include and a runtime include is? This one actually would paste the entire contents of this global.jsp file to this file when the JSP gets compiled. Okay, that's not how you want it to run, so it's always better to use the runtime include so that you save some memory, right? So in AEM, how do I include the scripts dynamically during runtime, right? So this is a very common script that is going to be used. Okay, you would say CQ colon include. This is the tag. This is the second tag we are doing. The first tag is CQ colon define objects, which is in Lips Foundation global.jsp. Second tag is CQ include that takes an attribute called script, which has the name of the script to be included. So over here, I'm going to remove all these and just say And in body.jsp, if it's in a different path, you can give the absolute path and include that script wherever it is. Now that it is right below my component, I'm giving it without any absolute path. In body.jsp, I'm saying from the body script, and here unable to compile. The reason is every script needs to include, if I'm using implicit object, it needs to include the global.jsp.
Do we need to do this for every script or only in this script?
Every script. Or you create one generic script and include that script everywhere. And it's equivalent to using this script only. You see this, right? From the body script. That's how you basically model errors, and to include one script within another dynamically, you would use CQ : include. Okay, just give me a break for 3-4 minutes. I'll have some water and come back. Now that I brought this, today we are focusing. Today and tomorrow we are focusing on the classic UI, and then we'll start on the touch UI. It's good to know both. Now in products, like let's say I open up any page. You see that there is a palette on your right side, right? This is what allows you to drag and drop components here, and you could drag and drop components. And the second tab here, right, you could go to the page. So whatever page properties I was talking about, right, you could also go to that page properties from your sidekick. This is where somebody asked me, hey, how do I change the title, right? This is how you change the entire metadata associated to that page, right? But I see that on my page, right, there is no sidekick showing up here. And this needs to be like a very generic feature that should come up on every page, right? Without me having to write any code. Right? So this is already a built-in. There's already a built-in component for this, right? So you have something called as lips foundation components page, right? This is a built-in page component. Adobe recommends that any component, page rendering component that you build has to inherit the features of this built-in page component so that you see the sidekick and everything. Okay, we'll see that. It's a built-in page component. Now, this built-in page component,
Rajesh, by the way, what is sidekick?
the name of this palette here, right? When you load the page, it loads on the side, right? So that's the
Oh,
reason they call it as sidekick.
okay.
This palette here, this green, you're able to see this moving thing here. This is the
Yeah, yeah.
sidekick. Yeah. If you go to Lips Foundation components page, a component has scripts. A component also has dialog so that you could make it editable. So that's the reason there's also a dialog. And when you expand this dialog, this structure, don't worry about this. We're going to understand in detail. There is basic, advanced, image, cloud services, blueprint, and live copy, right? And that's the same thing that you would see here when you click on page properties. Basic, advanced, image, cloud services, blueprint, and live copy, right? So there is a clear scenario where I need to inherit, right? I don't want to copy the same structure. One thing is you could actually copy this entire dialog below your page rendering component. That is one approach, right? So I don't want to do any of those things. Rather, I just want to inherit the features, right? When I say inherit, how do I inherit the features of a parent component? When I say features, I specifically am talking about dialogues and scripts. Okay, so for this, the rule is on the child component, add a property called sling colon. Whenever you work with sling colon resource type, or here inheritance is super, right? Or whenever you work with sling resource type or resource super type, what should it be? You need to always work with the relative paths. This will point to the relative path of the parent component. So your Sling engine will first prefix that path with /apps. If that particular component is not found, then it will prefix with /libs, right? So we'll see that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this path on the child component, right? Now the child component is the one that we just built for Ford. On this child, I'm going to add a property called, right, on the CQ. You need to add this on the CQ component node, right? Not anywhere else, not on the scripts. So I'm going to say sling colon resource super type. Okay. Now your Sling engine will first try to prefix this and look for /apps foundation component page. It's not available. Then it will prefix with /libs, right? And look for libs foundation component page. It's available. The moment you do this, and if I refresh my page, oh, it didn't show up. Oh, hold on. Um, is there an error or something? Hold on. Okay, this still wouldn't work. There is something else that you need to do. The JavaScript, right, to load the sidekick is in a file called as init.js. There's a launch sidekick function. Now I remember. Sorry. So if you see libs wcm and you go to core init. Okay. So the JavaScript to launch that sidekick. These are all built-in scripts. Okay, you don't need to worry too much. But good to know. See, there is a JavaScript over here which is actually launching the sidekick. See this here? cq.wcm.launch sidekick on your page. So all that you need to do is just include this script in your this is called as initializing the WCM. Right? That will bring up the sidekick on your page. Script equal to
It would be nice.
WCM, yeah, is WCM means web content management?
correct. One minute. Sorry, you were saying something, Shaila?
No, I just said that when you start creating a JSP, it would be nice if some of the basic things were included by default. No, is there a way to trigger that?
Only that Lips Foundation Global.jsp will be included.
No, now we figured there's a sidekick needed and maybe what else, right?
Correct. Generally, what they do in applications is you would make one init.jsp for your application, and that init will include this sidekick. Will have the inclusion code to include this sidekick, to include the global.jsp, and any page that you create will include that init. So that way, you're trying to bootstrap everything. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got it. I got it. I mean, yeah. Okay, some applications, some CMSs, like when you create it, JSP template, it actually by default includes all the. It's fine. That's the way.
Yeah, I think they should have done that. I mean, it is a good idea. I don't know why they don't do it. Yeah.
Rajesh, this reminds me, I may forget, so I'm going to ask you. You said that you had a session where you guys compared the CMSs and stuff like that. Could you remember to send the link for that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I didn't send that with you still, right?
No.
I didn't. Okay. See here, even though I remove that sling resource super type, this has come up over here. Now that question of, right, when I click on this page properties is not even clickable. And I saw that the page properties was built as a dialog in Lips Foundation components page. Correct? So that is the reason I need to inherit this guy. The moment I inherit, the dialogues get automatically inherited. Right? So that's the reason when I refresh now, do you see these dialogues here? Which means the moment you add sling resource super type, the dialog gets automatically inherited. Do you agree with my point here? Paneer and Krishna, you guys also agree with me on this?
Yes.
If that is the case, with the same logic, inheritance, if I remove this thing, I am inheriting foundation components page. Okay. There is the same script in my parent component and same script in my child component as well, the body.jsp. Do you agree with me? You see the body.jsp here, this one? And I have one body.jsp where I have included all the implicit objects. So which one should get invoked when you have a parent and a child which has the same script name?
Child.
Correct. That is the reason the output is still showing us this content, Ford focus, etc. Okay, the same body.jsp was in the parent component as well as the child, but still the child got invoked. Very good. Then when I inherited this lips foundation page, there is something called as head.jsp somewhere here. There's a head.jsp, and this head.jsp has the script to include the init.jsp, which I used to do manually on my body.jsp, right? So logically, just like how dialogues got automatically inherited, because I'm inheriting the parent, this script also should get inherited. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
Okay, but let's see. Right? It doesn't work that way. So which means only the dialogues get automatically inherited. For the scripts, you need to explicitly add it. Obviously, in my child script only, I mean. Now over here, I'm going to say okay. See here, I'm not giving the absolute path, nor there is a head. The reason this head is being made available is because I've added this resource super type. This guy is what is making this head from the parent available over here. Now if I refresh, it should show up the sidekick with the page properties enabled. Do you see this?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this clear? I'm going to stop at this point. Okay, just go ahead and try this hands-on. It looks easy, but when you start doing, you may encounter some errors, all those things. So let's see. Did you get a chance to build the site yesterday by any chance?